here to start streaming. I think we're good to go. So, welcome. We are so excited to welcome everyone who is here today to talk with some Oregon college admissions representatives about why college is important. My name is Adrienne Enriquez, and I work with the Oregon Goes to College statewide initiative, and that is the sponsor of Oregon College Application Week. And so if you're here as part of College Application Week, welcome. If you're here because you just stumbled upon us, welcome. We are really excited tonight to talk about why college is important. And I want to start off by saying that when we talk about college, we mean any formal education or training after high school. So that is 2-year, 4-year apprenticeships, trade schools, sort of all of those things that you might do to get some extra training or formal education after high school. So I'd love to get started by asking our panelists to introduce themselves. And I'm going to ask you to do that by sharing your name, the college that you work for. And because tonight's session is about why college is important, I'm going to get a little bit personal and also ask what college or colleges you attended and one reason that you chose to attend college. Okay, so I'm going to repeat those: your name, the college you work for, the college you attended, and one reason you chose to go to college. And Courtney, I'm going to ask you to start.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone watching this. My name is Courtney Weaver, and I am an admissions counselor at Southern Oregon University. So that's where I'm at right now. I graduated from a small liberal arts private school in Franklin, Indiana. It was called Franklin College. And then I actually went on to get my master's degree at Indiana University. And so I graduated with my master's in higher ed and student affairs in 2015. And as far as why I went to college and why I went to grad school, I would say for going to college specifically, I grew up in a small town in Indiana. And for me, getting out and experiencing, a different world, a different kind of life, outside of my small hometown, I graduated with 50 other people. So I was ready to get out and just kind of see what the world had to offer. So that was a big reason for me for going to college.
Great, thank you, Courtney. That is not an uncommon situation for a lot of Oregonians to come from small rural communities with very small high schools. So I think your advice for them tonight will be welcome. Missy, how about you?
Hi there, I'm Missy Olson. I am the Assistant Vice President of Enrollment and Student Services at Umpqua Community College in Roseburg, Oregon. I have my bachelor's degree is from the University of Oregon. And my master's degree is from Oregon State. So I am a platypus, I guess, in the state of Oregon. And I went to college. I really knew I was going to go to college, but I actually went into college having no idea what I wanted to do. So I really liked the idea of being able to explore different areas and really figure out what fit me. And I think that continued because I have a bachelor's degree in journalism with a focus on public relations, and I have a master's degree in adult education. So just know that you can continue to explore what's good for you throughout your life.
I agree. My undergraduate degree is a double major in math and sociology, and my graduate degree is in sociology of education and race and ethnic relations. So I went, both ends, which I think is also maybe a little bit common. So we have something in common a little bit, Missy, trying different things. Stephanie, how about you?
Yeah, hi y'all. My name is Stephanie Chi. I'm an admissions counselor at Willamette University. I predominantly work with students in the Texas, Colorado area, but I'm super excited to be here tonight. I, like Missy, am also a platypus. I received my Bachelor of Science at the University of Oregon, majoring in Family Human Services, and then I continued on to receive my master's at Oregon State University in higher education and student affairs. So I think my main motivation for going to college was one for my family. Both my parents immigrated from Taiwan, and they really in their mid-20s, so they really hoped for being in the States would provide a lot more opportunities for me and my siblings. So I knew that was a really big push for me to do that for my family and be a first generation college student.
Great. Thank you all for sharing your stories. Or we're going to hear a little bit more from you, obviously, as we go. I wanted to make a note that you all are working at schools that you didn't attend. And so I just wanted to say to our audience who may have picked up on that as well, that that's not uncommon. There are so many colleges and universities in the country, and they all have something to offer. And I think that regardless of whether you attended them or not, it's pretty easy to find those things that each college has to offer and feel good about sharing that with other people. So I'm assuming that that is true for the three of you, that you found things that you find worthwhile sharing about the places that you're representing, even though you didn't have that experience. So thank you again for being with us today. I've noticed that we do have some folks joining us live. And so I wanted to let you know that there is the YouTube chat function or commenting function. And so if you have questions for our panelists as we go, please feel free to use that. We will be keeping an eye on those comments and make sure to get those questions to the panelists if you have them. So our next question is, we often hear that a college degree helps us earn more money. That's a really common thing that people talk about why college is important. So I think most people know that. I'm wondering if you can share one other benefit of going to college that is beyond the extra money piece. And Missy, I'm going to ask you to start this one.
So I feel one of the biggest benefits is that college education really exposes you to other views in life that you never would have if you didn't have that interaction. It's really designed to have students engage with each other through dialogue and debate, through research, to really explore topics that maybe where you're from, you just were never exposed to that. And I think to be well-rounded citizens, we really should be looking at all viewpoints, really kind of pushing our brains to really look at things we don't know and exploring that, and then seeing how that we can reflect on that in our lives. So I think that college is, even if you end up doing something different than what your degree is in, that experience, that interaction, that knowledge building is just, it's really priceless.
Thank you, Missy. I 100% agree with you. That's one of my favorite things about college. Courtney, I see you nodding.
Yeah, definitely.
What is another benefit that you can think of?
Well, I definitely second what Missy said. That was my experience personally. Like I said, coming from where I was to where I went to school was completely different environment. So there was a little bit of culture shock there for a while, but it was good, in a good way. So, I think I took this question, I guess, a little more literally. And so I tried to think of, some other benefits specifically from college. And, studies have shown that students that, attend, school of some kind, whether that's, a year or two or a 2-year degree or 4-year degree, they have greater job security overall. They have lower unemployment overall. Additionally, one that I found that was really interesting is that they have better overall health. And so, and then the big one for me was that their likelihood of being happier in the long run is, greater than, folks that only, maybe have a high school diploma. So I did, kind of the research thing and went a little more literal with that. But I think all of those are obviously great things and really good reasons to, look into getting an education.
Absolutely, Courtney. I think you're right. And those are all the research is good. It's good to share all of those. It's good to share all of those things. Stephanie, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think all of them shared very similar experiences. For me, I came from a really small town in Texas and then came to Oregon. So that was a huge culture shock as well. I think the experiences of having dialogue with folks from different areas really is a huge benefit. And it really just kind of explores who you are as a person. So from my experience, I don't think high school me would ever believe of all the things that I went through in college. One, having an identity crisis as an Asian American woman in college in a pretty predominantly white institution. trying out for an a cappella group on campus, knowing that I am tone deaf and have no rhythm, or going and trying out for crew and or being part of an Asian American club on campus and things like that. I think all of those different experiences have really brought me out of my own shell and really provided me experiences of finding what I'm interested in and these lifelong friendships that I still have to this day. So I think that's a huge benefit of going to college is all of these different experiences a university can really provide you.
Great. And Stephanie, especially because of how you answered that question, I'm going to start with you for the next question. I think it was a good segue, and that is, what is something that you're doing now or that you have done that you would not, that wouldn't have been possible without going to college, or that you might not have tried without having gone?
My job.
Okay.
I think for me in high school, I was super shy. Public speaking is not my forte. So being here right now, speaking to a bunch of strangers is really intimidating, but I don't think I would have been able to do that without going to college. Another thing that I think about in like a skill sets too is advocating for myself. I think I was very fortunate to go to a high school where I really didn't need to think about the courses I was taking or the systems that were in place to help me achieve academic success. So when going to college, I really had to be self-motivating and advocate for myself in the courses and what I personally needed to thrive. And so now to this day, I'm not afraid to ask for help or find different support systems that would, you know, help me in different avenues that might be different from another person.
Great. Those are good responses to that. Missy, what's something that you're doing now or have done that wouldn't have been possible without going to college?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, my entire career track has definitely been because I have a foundation through having a college education. I did actually start work in journalism and public relations and had the fun of doing I was a marketing director for a couple companies and started out sort of young and did that work, which really translated once I switched over to higher education, kind of took that ability that I have from my bachelor's degree to really talk about programs, figure out what you want to discuss, promote certain aspects, and really think about that through a lens of talking about education. My area is a rural area that some people don't, a lot of the parents don't necessarily have a bachelor's degree. They don't know how to do it. So it's our job to really explain why it's of value, like tonight's presentation, but also how to understand all these confusing processes you have to work your way through. So it was an interesting switch to go from marketing and PR, but it ties so nicely to this idea of helping people like pick their path to achieve their dream and then really keep helping them through that process. Because I think all of us in higher education realize that it's confusing and it's so courageous to make that decision to go to school. And then you don't want to get discouraged because of processes, right? So to really keep those conversations going, think how we can always make it better. My joy of a community college is I've worked with our GED program. I've worked with our pre-college trio programs that are in high schools to get kids to college. And now I get to work with all college students trying to, make their path clear from enrollment, all their enrollment processes. So all of those tied together really tied way back when I was 20 and I picked my bachelor's degree. So I think that's just, it's nice. And it's nice to know that you can kind of weave together the life you want and it's a foundation.
And I bet you had no idea that you would end up working at a community college when you were starting your college experience.
No idea. But I love it. I love the fact that a community college can serve so many different kinds of people and help so many different groups pursue their dreams. So yeah,
absolutely. I think that's one of the things that I really appreciate about the experience of going to college is we get to try new things and learn new things. And sometimes we have a really clear idea of what we want to do with our lives. And sometimes we don't, but either way, sometimes our path changes because of the wonderful things that we learn when we're in school. I also really loved hearing you say, so I'm going to pull it back out and just remind people that this choice to go on to education after high school is a really courageous one. And so I just want to, those of you who are out there listening, congratulations on making a really courageous choice, and you can do it. And all the people here tonight and in many colleges around the state and country are here to help you do that. So Courtney, what is one thing that you're doing now or have done that wouldn't have been possible without college?
Yeah, I think I would kind of piggyback off everyone else here and say, you know, the career that I'm in right now, like you said, I think a lot of students go into college or, you know, community college, whatever, you know, not necessarily knowing what it is that they want to do. I know that I was one of those students myself. I ended up deciding to get my history degree just because I enjoyed history and it was something that I was good at. But I remember the time came for, you know, senior year and I had no idea what I wanted to do after graduation. But, you know, luckily for me, when I was a freshman, I had decided to become an orientation leader at my college in order to meet new people and just kind of, you know, put myself out there. And that decision ended up being what, you know, got me on this career path that I'm on now. And so when the time came for me to decide, you know, what are my next steps after graduation, my orientation supervisor, you know, she had molded me and given me an internship opportunity and really helped me and was a big mentor to me. She said, "You're great at this, do this." And I was like, what is this? And she's like, student affairs. And I was like, I had no idea what that was. I had no idea, I didn't know it was a concept. So she pushed me to go get my grad degree, and then, you know, here I am now. So, you know, I think definitely my career has been molded by my experiences in college for sure.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I want to give another quick reminder to those who are watching. If you are watching us live and you have questions for our panelists, feel free to use the YouTube comment section. We will be checking those. And so if you've got anything you want to know, let us know. We'll make sure that those questions get asked. Missy, why do you think it's important for students to continue their education after high school?
You know, with how you introduced us at the very beginning, or I think you were talking to us, and maybe it wasn't the whole group, but to me, higher education is any path you pick where you can explore what fits you the best. And there's just so much out there to help you figure that out. You know, whether it's a career technical program, if you don't think, you know, a full 4-year transfer degree is for you. We need electricians, we need plumbers, we need welders, but we also need people who do have history degrees and go on and do amazing things in the world of history. We need people who can learn the sciences and go on and become doctors. And I think that what's really neat is that you can explore that and really find that path. And there's so many, the faculty are so fabulous to ask questions to along the way that you can really start to hear their experiences, to understand the careers in those fields, careers you've never even thought of. And these are people that have, you know, experience, they have lots of education, they have connections. And the more you get involved, the more you do, the more networking opportunities that open up for you. So I think it is a big decision. It's an expensive decision, but in the long run, if you use your resources and really push yourself. I was a shy kid. Me talking to people, going to their office hours, I would have been like, no way am I going to go talk to that scary professor. But they're not, they're humans and they're there to help you. And it really, really does give you a step up, and it just opens your world to everything you can do out there. So I really just think that, you know, it gets back to how we were all saying that we never knew what was in front of us and we did it. And that's what I think is exciting for any person out there starting to look at their next steps after high school, is you don't know what's out there. And so it's worth it to go explore and see what fits you.
Exploration. I love that idea also. Thank you. Stephanie, why do you think it's important for students to continue their education after high school?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, what has been said, I think it's really important for folks out there to know that we have chosen this profession in higher education to really support students and guide their path. Like there is support systems out there, and I think it's really intimidating thinking you have to do this alone. But in that process, I think students also learn how to be independent decision makers when they go to college. So I think that's a really important factor for them to start kind of, again, finding who they are and their own voices with these support systems at different universities or institutions or trade schools or whatever it might be. There are people there that have found this profession to support you as a student and as a lifelong learner. I think it's important for students to really continue that education regardless of really what they're interested in because of this exploration piece. At Willamette University, I'm just thinking of our institution itself, it's not uncommon to see students exploring really unique majors that are very different from each other, but still they're double majoring or double minoring because that's something they're really interested in. So I think there's ways to combine your interests and again, continue your exploration in very different venues.
Yeah, thank you. Continuing that theme of exploration, I think that's one of the really big reasons, right? Courtney, do you have other thoughts about why students should continue?
I mean, they pretty much covered it for me, but for me, it's just like you said, having that time for exploration, but also just that's like the one. I feel like that time in your life is almost the one time that you have the ability to dedicate yourself to your passions and try and figure out what your passions are, and so it's just a really great opportunity that I hope that folks will take advantage of. And we said it kind of in one of the other questions, but again too, you develop socially and emotionally, and you learn. Obviously you're getting the academic part of it, so there's just so many reasons why I hope folks will continue their education.
Yeah, it's definitely a good time for growth as well as exploration and really sort of figuring out what's important to you and what your passions are. I agree with that for sure. Yeah, go ahead.
So Courtney hit on it earlier too. I'm going to just go. You go and you get your college degree. The chances you're going to make more money. You're going to have a like better. And you're going to be happier in the long run. So yes, it's all of this is true, but there are definite financial payoffs as well as your health and well-being. I would also agree with what Courtney said.
For sure. We definitely don't want to let that go. It is true. And speaking of the research that Courtney had done earlier, I've done a little bit of research about this too, and sort of thinking about the time frame that we're in right now with respect to COVID and what's been happening in the economy. It is absolutely the case that those who have a credential, so a degree after high school, have been the least likely to have lost their jobs during this time. And so it doesn't make you, it's not a guarantee that things like COVID or recessions won't hit you in some way. But it is certainly the case that those who have a degree have been in a better financial position in the last 8 months than those who haven't. And so that's another really relevant current right now reason. Yeah, absolutely.
Who should we start with? It also widens your applicant pool or your pool as well for job searching when it comes to that time. Without a degree, it kind of really limits your positions that you can apply for as well. So don't limit yourself.
It gives you many more opportunities. Yeah, absolutely. Let's start with Courtney this time. What is your best advice for someone who is unsure about whether or not to go to college? So,
yeah, I thought about this question a lot. And really, I think what it kind of boils down to is that I think we've all kind of touched on it at some point or another, but your education is something that no one is ever going to be able to take away from you. And so once you have it, like that's something you can use to your advantage for, the rest of your life. And so, that's what my mother told me when I went to college. She was, super proud of me. I was a first gen student, but, she always expected that I would go. And then when I did, that's what she told me. She said, once you get this education, it's going to be yours. And so, is it an investment? Of course. But is it worth it? Again, of course. So.
Right. Thank you. An investment that's worth it. Stephanie, what's your best advice for someone who is unsure about whether or not this is for them?
Yeah, I'm a big advocate for lists. So for students who are unsure, I think you just really need to work with someone you trust, whether that be a family member or a high school counselor or someone you consider a mentor, and run through that list. What's holding you back and what's driving you to go, and reasons that are holding you back. Work with them to see if there are any resources to really limit those list items that are really holding you back from going to a university or a trade school or a community college. Whether that be price, look at scholarships. If it's majors, then what other universities have majors that you're interested in pursuing. So I think working it out on paper with someone who knows you very well can also be a great kind of soundboard to what you're thinking.
Make some lists.
Yeah.
Everybody should make lists.
I'm a big advocate for lists. Look at my office. It's just post-it notes and post-it notes of wall decor.
Excellent. What's your advice?
I would say, well, I love the list because I'm a fan of it as well. But I would definitely say explore. It's easy sometimes to just say, no, I can't do that. And so what I would say is institutions like community colleges, universities, there's career coaches, there's people that can help guide through some assessments to figure out what fits you. Your high school counselors are a great starting point for that work as well. It's sometimes scary to ask for help, but it's definitely not a time when you really should, because there are a lot of people out there, if you're willing to ask, that can help. So there's things to really figure out what does fit you. It's hard to understand the differences between how long certain programs take. Like Stephanie was saying, what kind of financial aid is out there, what other opportunities there are to help support you, because sometimes the sticker shock just seems overwhelming. And but so that just shuts someone down instead of continuing that work to see what's out there. All of our universities and colleges are different, and they all could come back with a different financial aid package for you based on your application. So apply. A lot of people tend to just apply to one location when really they should apply to several and really see what's out there and fits them best. If you're truly unsure, yes, a community college is a fabulous place to start, especially if you qualify for Oregon Promise and you could have your tuition covered. You can take the general ed requirements and see what it's like. But I would, it is hard work. Everywhere you're going to go is hard work. And you want to make sure that you're starting your academic record successfully. So you really do want to make sure that, yes, it might be scary, but yes, you're willing to kind of put that work in so that you can keep being successful. And so I think it's a balance. It's a balance of asking for help, and it's a balance of knowing that you've got the grit to make it happen. And I think that long-term vision of what your life will be like if you keep persevering is worth it, right? The best thing to invest in is yourself. So I think that there's a lot of resources out there, and I really do encourage exploration. And I think your senior year in high school is fabulous time because you actually have people who can help. And I know right now, right, a lot of virtual interaction. I guarantee that the counselors and the career center directors would love to answer your questions because they don't get to see students every day. So perfect opportunity to start asking questions and doing that exploration.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I was going to say the exact same thing. You kind of got to where I was going to go with the virtual options right now. Your counselors would love to hear from you. I know I'm working from home, as you can tell. And so I would absolutely love to, have more interactions with students right now. So definitely, take advantage of the opportunities that, colleges and universities are offering right now, because there's a lot of virtual options out there. You just kind of have to seek them out. So, I would encourage students to, challenge themselves to do that.
Mm-hmm.
definitely those at the colleges are ready and willing to have conversations with you. But I've also been talking to a lot of your high school counselors and college and career coordinators, and they're missing you too. If you haven't been in touch with them this year, definitely make an effort to reach out to them. They've probably been reaching out to you, so respond to them.
Yes.
They want to hear from you. They want to they want to help you as you're moving through this. So the adults in your life, they miss you. So make sure that you're giving them a little bit of attention too, and they'll give you a lot back in return, I'm sure. I have one more question, and it is sort of related to the reason, not sort of, it is 100% related to the reason that we're all virtual right now. And so before I ask that question, I do want to remind those of you who are joining us live that if you have questions, now is a really good time to get those into the comments in the YouTube comments, because we'll be able to take them after this, but we probably won't sit around waiting for a long time after we answer these questions. So now's a good time to get those in if you've got them. And my question is, what is your best COVID related advice? So what are some things that students can be thinking about now, particularly when we don't really know what the spring or even next fall is going to look like? So what are the things that students can be considering and thinking about as they're making decisions, and about whether or not to go to college, or just what should they be thinking about, or what can they be thinking about? And Stephanie, I think I'm going to start with you.
When it comes to COVID related advice, I really think this is a beautiful time to be creative. I know I'm working with a lot of students right now who feel like because of COVID, they feel stuck or things are at a halt, when really things are being just a little bit more creative and it just looks a little different. So when it comes to, thinking about ways to be involved in your school, students are putting on a Zoom theater production or finding different community service opportunities through a virtual way to engage with elderly folks within their community to still provide them some sort of interaction, because they have to be physically distant from other people. So I think this is a perfect opportunity right now. If you're thinking about going to college, is being creative with your the way you're building your co-curricular activities, the way you're interacting with universities. A lot of universities now have Zoom virtual tours. So if you feel like you can't make it out to a university that seems so far away, it probably is more easily accessible to you now because of COVID. So I would definitely think about just thinking a little differently than what you have in the past when it comes to applying for colleges or exploring different universities.
Great. Courtney.
Yeah. I would definitely agree with everything that Stephanie said. And then, on top of that, I think just along with being creative, being flexible, maybe discovering some new options as far as, what your options are for college. Like she said before, making those lists, a good pro-con list is always a good thing to have. And then additionally, I think just, thinking practically, make yourself more familiar with, some of the virtual or, online kind of platforms that we're all using right now, and that, most likely we'll be using, significant, if not, more permanent, in the future. Now that we know that we can move some things online, that might become, more of a staple for a lot of colleges and universities. So, familiarize yourself with Zoom and Google Meets and, some of the different platforms that everyone's using right now. And again, just, taking advantage of all the opportunities, like Stephanie said, with online campus tours. And I know that from our website, you can sign up for an admissions counselor meeting, a one-on-one video chat meeting. You can take our 360-degree campus tour. You can attend an info session. So there's lots of really great options right now.
Fantastic. Lots of good stuff going on. Missy, what's your best COVID advice?
I think we're all becoming pros, right, on new technology. And I know all our high school students are learning different platforms themselves, and just think how much you know now and that you didn't know at the beginning of September. Just keep in mind, that's what you're going to do in college too. So it's that's part of this. And what areas do you want to explore? Use this chance you're going to be applying online. So start that work. If you haven't already done your FAFSA, you should get it done. Start making sure you're building your scholarship, your activity charts, and start working on some sample essays, or start getting that done. Just space it out throughout all this time. I absolutely agree with Courtney and Stephanie. I mean, there's so much out there. If you click on any college or university you're interested in, I guarantee you're going to find some link where somebody will be happy to talk to you. Like, we love it. And so please reach out. Just use that time. And kind of what we said a little while ago, you can use your teachers, you can use your counselors, your high school counselors for help along the way. And it really will prepare you for those decision making. And just, I guess that final thing is really exploring different options, because you might change your mind between this right now in November and how you feel next August about what you want to do. So have a kind of a plan that you've explored several options and you've applied to a couple different institutions, so you have a plan.
Really good advice. I love both of those last two questions and the amount of advice that came in there. I hope that folks were paying close attention to that. We have one question that has come in, and I think it's a really good one to close us out, unless we see another question come in. But I really like this as a closer, and that is, what is one of your favorite memories from college? So I'll give you just a couple seconds to think about that, and whoever comes up with it first can share. I mean, you'll all get a chance to share, but whoever comes up first gets to start.
I'll go first. This is the first one that kind of popped in my head. I don't know if it's my favorite, but it's my favorite as of right now. So in college, I was part of the orientation programs at University of Oregon, as well as the ambassador program as well. I was heavily involved as that in my student position, and my mentor was the director of orientation. She really helped me kind of pursue this field and my leadership. But what my favorite memory of being involved in orientation programs and ambassador program is that, because of my background and my position and my interests in the field, they flew me out to recruit students in Texas, Hawaii, Chicago, Washington, D.C., parts of Oregon. And so that was super cool that the university saw so much in me that they wanted me to go and talk about our university to other students, to also share my experiences, and hopefully they would come and have great experiences of their own. So that's my favorite memory, is just being able to travel and share my experience with other students.
Cool, that's a good one. Courtney or Missy?
I guess the one, mine is in a completely different direction, but the memory that that was great, Stephanie. That's awesome that your college and your university did that. The first one that came into my head, so I'll just go ahead and share it, is it was late one winter evening, like midnight late, which I guess isn't late for a lot of college students, but it is for me now. But and a group of my friends and I were hanging out, and it had started to snow outside. And we got the bright idea that, having a snowball fight at midnight was an awesome idea. And so we went outside and we started throwing snowballs. It was a group of 5 or 6 of us. And I guess word got out on campus that a snowball fight was going down, because before we knew it, there was 100 easy people out on the lawn, throwing snowballs at each other. And so I just remember that was so much fun. And that was just something I don't think I'll ever forget, just because it was so cool. And, that was a shared experience that we all had. And so that's something that, I look back fondly on when I think about my time in college.
Awesome. Missy?
Yeah, that's awesome too. I love both of those. This is what's cool about college. I'll go the academic route. I remember by the time I was a senior, so you start out kind of with your general ed classes, your freshman and your sophomore year. They're not as specialized, but then you're starting to pick what you want to do. And then your classes slowly get more like kind of directed toward what you really are interested in. So I know by the time I was a senior, so I have journalism degree with public relations, but I also have a minor in business. And so as part of the business program, I had a marketing class, and we had to put a project together where we had to go find a client, and it had to be a real business, where we actually had to do the research and investigate their product and then put a full marketing plan together. And it was a group of 4, 22-year-olds who were like, oh my goodness, seriously. And so we went around to like the restaurants around the university and just, we were getting, drinks and food too, and finally found one that didn't know how to promote themselves. And so they were willing to have these college students like ask them lots of questions and then go out and talk to customers and put together a full marketing plan for them. And so scary for 22-year-olds, probably a little scary for the business too, but that's what education was about. And so what chance would we have ever had to do that work if we weren't really forced to do it as part of a project? And so I think that's an example of what college does that perhaps you don't do and otherwise. You get a little icky out of your comfort zone. But we learned by far more doing that real life project and having to be professional. It included a full plan with a presentation and everything. We got free food out of the deal. So as college students, we were happy, but that's what I think is cool. And I'm sure there's other little tidbits. All of these examples are sort of what makes a college experience unique.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I share my favorite one that came to mind now? So I went to a small liberal arts college in the Midwest. I grew up in Portland, but went off to Iowa for college. And it was a small college, and there was a lot of good relationships between students and faculty. We got to know our professors pretty well. And one of my favorite memories is my math. So I told you earlier that I have a math degree, and my math advisor, who was also a professor that taught me, one of my favorite professors, he was a little bit grandfatherly. I always felt like I was, I just always felt like he was very grandfatherly, but he was very kind and a wonderful professor. And every semester he invited all of his advisees to his house to watch a late night show at like 11:30 at night. And he and his wife would spend all day preparing food for us. And so we would come to his house and there would be like 15 or 20 people just kind of hanging out in his basement, watching this late night show that I could have cared less about. I just really appreciated the opportunity to be there with these other people and we, weren't talking about math. We were just hanging out with this guy who's like a person. And I think that sort of goes back to some of the things that Missy was saying earlier, that people who work at colleges, they're people. And so it can be really scary sometimes to engage with them until we remember that they're just people. And that was a really good opportunity to do that. And it was so fun to like meet his wife and just hang out in his basement with all these other people watching really terrible TV late at night. So, super fun stuff can happen in college. There's all kinds of opportunities. And so that was a great question to end on. I want to remind folks who are watching that we're going to have 5 more panel discussions as we go over the course of the next 2 weeks. The next one is Wednesday, same time, 6:30. And on Wednesday, we'll be talking about what you need to know about applying to community colleges. So I think that will be another good discussion. And I want to thank our panelists today for joining us and sharing your stories and your really good advice. And I want to invite all of our viewers to take that courageous path and go forward in your exploration and thinking about what comes next. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to any of our panelists or your counselor or anyone else who's in an admissions office at a college that you might be interested in. Folks are ready to chat with you and hear what you have to say. And so thank you for joining us. And we're looking forward to seeing you again. Thank you. Okay. Okay, I think I end.